Good morning. Am I on? Good morning, everyone. I love the energy. Absolutely love it. We've got an awesome agenda for you. You're going to learn a lot of information, and then at the end, we're going to open up for any question that you want to ask. But on behalf of the board, Scott, and staff, we want to welcome you to our mid-year town hall. So thank you for getting up early, but isn't it another beautiful day in paradise? Let's hear it for Big Canoe. My name is Terry Stewart, and I have the pleasure of serving as board president this year, and it's a tremendous responsibility, but more so an honor to represent the board and to represent all of you, because guess who put us in these seats? You did. You did. I talked about the beautiful day outside. Let's talk about the beautiful sanctuary that we're all sitting in right now. I want to thank the chapel and Jim and Tom for the work they're doing and for sharing their sanctuary with us. So thank you very much. Let's hear it for the chapel. Couple of reminders. If you don't mind, silence your phones. I forgot to do that one time in a meeting. And secondly, we are, as I mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. We're going to record it. And this entire meeting will be posted. It'll take a few days because we have to get the recording off of the chapel system and on our systems. And I think the chapel's pretty busy tomorrow, so they probably won't give us the tape tomorrow, but we'll get it probably Monday and all. And David Apple's a friend of mine. He's also an associate pastor here. And I was going to tell David, I'd much rather sit out there because he's usually up here. But today I switched spots with him. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to introduce the board to you. And when I call your name, if you don't mind, stand up and wave your smiley face. And guess who's first? Miss Sandy. Miss You are on the board, right? Sandy Pilar, she's our treasurer. She's our money lady. Mark Green, our secretary. Craig Price, our director at large. Mike Ziegler, you're somewhere, our developer representative. And you're going to hear from this guy later. Awesome. Tim Moran, vice president. There's Tim. And Elton Gogolin, director at large. Let's hear it for the directors. Tim and Elton are the two directors that's rotating off this year, and when we get to the election update, we'll talk about that a little bit. So I don't know if you're looking forward to 5 more months or you can't wait for 5 more months. So, close. All right. We also have some guests here today. From Dawson County, we have Joey Leverett, Dawson County Manager. If you don't mind standing up, please. Thank you very much. And Seth Stowers, Dawson County District 1 Commissioner. But Pickens is not going to be outdone because they're also here. We have Chris Stansel, Pickens County Commission Chairman. You're next, Josh. Josh Tippins, Pickens County Commissioner, Post 1. And by the way, Josh Tatum had a prior commitment. He could not be here, but he sends his thoughts, and Josh meets with us anytime we want to meet. And Josh Tippins is also a volunteer firefighter, so thank you for that service. Also, I want to introduce POA staff. Jane Hagan, where's Jane? Our Director of Finance. Delane Ferris, Director of Communications and Community Involvement. Her business card has to be longer. Chief Ricky Jordan, Public Safety. He's probably busy. There he is back there taking care of us. Let's hear it for Chief. Scott Auer, our General Manager. You'll hear from him in a minute. Lydell Mack, our Director of Operations, and Kathy Jones, our HR person, are both on vacation. They send their love, but they couldn't be here. I also want to welcome all the other staff. I saw Steve and several others joining us this morning. So welcome to all of our guests and staff. All right, let's talk about the agenda. In a couple of minutes, I have the pleasure of presenting the winner of the President's Award. In addition to that, we'll get into a strategic plan review, and that's pretty in-depth. Scott and I will share the microphone on that, and then we will get into board goals and share you where we are. And then Mike Ziegler from Big Canoe Company will speak, and we'll have a dam update from Wes McDonald. Where are you, Wes? You're somewhere in here. There's Wes over here. More on Wes in a little bit. Scott will introduce Wes. All right, let's get into the agenda. Let's talk about the President's Award. What is it? It is an award that recognizes one resident each year who stands out for the work to make Big Canoe a better place to live through their volunteer service. Big Canoe runs on volunteerism. Think of all the committees and everything. If we had to pay for all of these services that volunteers provide for us, our dues would be 2 or 3 times what they are now, kind of thing. So I want to recognize all of the volunteers inside of Big Canoe for everything they do. Let's hear it for the volunteers. We had several nominations this year, and it's up to the board to go through all the nominations, discuss them, and make a final determination because we only have one award to give out. But I also did not want all the other nominees to go unrecognized. I personally called every one of them and thanked them for their service and made them aware that they were nominated. And that was great phone calls, by the way. Oh, really? And they love the fact that their peers have acknowledged their efforts in volunteering. So that was a lot of fun phone calls. I got a hold of everyone except one person, and I've not been able to track them down yet. But my goal is maybe after this meeting, I'll track them down. All right, let me share a few comments about this year's winner. This year's winner graduated as a member of the 21 Leadership Big Canoe class. In May of 21, they asked to fill the open position on the Leadership Big Canoe board, and they moved into the role of secretary in 2021. And secretary is a big role. In May of 22, they moved into the vice chair. The vice chair is responsible for the application process and final class roster. They did such a good job there. Guess what? They moved into the chair position in May of 23. During their time on the LBC board, they worked to make the program more effective and more efficient. They migrated from paper and binders to digital, and that's translated into saving several thousands of dollars. Now let's talk about another area of which they volunteer in. They joined the Big Canoe Volunteer Fire Department in 2019 as an active member. In 2020, they joined the board as the Director of Volunteers. What does a Director of Volunteers do? A lot. In that role, they were responsible for coordinating all of the members of the Volunteer Fire Department, there's over 20 of them, and working with Chief Jordan and Captain Rice to coordinate training. There is training every Thursday night from 6 to 9 o'clock, either at the Live Fire Burn Center or somewhere else in the community, even out on the lake. So if anybody wants to join the Volunteer Fire Department, I'll put a plug in. You can be as involved as you want to be, or you can be trained and go into a fire, whatever is up to you. They were also responsible for scheduling all the volunteers. Think of the events that we have here. Setting up the banners on the dam. We do traffic control. Taking the banners down off the dam. Traffic control. Think of last Saturday, everything that went on here, including the fireworks, traffic control. It takes a lot of volunteers. Then in January of 23, they became president of the Volunteer Fire Department. and played a major role in helping plan and organize the largest fundraiser ever in Big Canoe. Last April, raised and netted over $77,000. And 100%, every penny of that went to rebuild the live fire training center. While this year's winner has many accomplishments, one of the biggest is they help work with Chief Jordan to justify and present to the Finance Committee and the board the justification for that brand new fire engine, which, by the way, was on scene in 3 minutes about 3 weeks ago. They also helped justify an additional FTE in the fire department. There were basically, there's usually 4 staff members full-time on staff. At one time, we only had 3, and everything is done in teams in the fire department. So those 2 accomplishments were really, really big. Not only do they serve on the board, they live the mission of the volunteer fire department. Fire calls, lost person, motor vehicle accidents, you name it. No matter what hour of the day, this individual showed up. In addition to everything I've just mentioned, this winter has a very genuine demeanor and has absolutely unwavering integrity. That's one of his biggest tributes. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bob Troffenbaum. Huh? We're going to get you a mic right quick, okay? In the meantime, let's do a picture. If we could grab a mic, we're going to do here's one right here. But let's do a picture first, Bob. Isn't that beautiful? Hope I don't drop it.
Is that for champagne?
It could be for anything you'd like. Awesome. All right, we got to save this for next year's person because we didn't.
Okay.
Testing. Are we on? There you go, my friend.
I better read it. Where's the on switch? Test.
Oh. All right. Anybody know a good joke? All right.
I can speak into your mic.
We've done fire hydrants together, so I guess we can do mics together.
There's got to be a switch.
Yeah, there's got to be. All right. Testing.
Or I can just try to speak loudly.
No, we're going to give you a mic because we want it on the recording.
How's this for teamwork?
All right. There you go. I've got a short leash.
Firefighters, we improvise.
Here's Bob.
Thanks, Terry. Well, needless to say, this award is a tremendous honor, especially knowing that there are so many incredible volunteers here in Big Canoe. I believe volunteering is the heartbeat of Big Canoe and a big part of what makes it special. But in many cases, we would not be as successful and productive without the commitment and support of the POA staff. This was certainly true in my case. So I would like to thank Scott Auer and his entire team, and I mean his entire team, for all that they do to help enhance all our volunteer opportunities. And speaking of volunteer opportunities, I have to put in a quick plug for Volunteer Big Canoe. This is essentially a portal to volunteer opportunities in Big Canoe, Pickens, and Dawson County for Big Canoe residents. I'm working with Sue Merrick and the Vol BC team to enhance this website which currently exists, for easier access and broader coverage. It's a work in process, so check it out. Give us some feedback, volbc.org. You might just find something you want to do in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Get undressed.
Okay, we're no longer connected.
Am I taking that with me?
Huh? Absolutely. This is your. I'll get it back from you afterwards. Congratulations, Bob, and congratulations to all the volunteers and all the nominations. We have an election coming up. As I mentioned, Tim and Elton are rotating off. To remind everyone, there are 7 directors on the board. One is the developer, Mike, and there are 6 others. Of those 6, 2 rotate off each year, and you vote 2 on. And each elected director serves 3 years. So next year, there'll be 2 others that rotate off, kind of thing. So it is a huge responsibility to be on the board, and people take it very, very seriously. But you have the opportunity to determine who you want to help lead Big Canoe into the future. I want to recognize Rich McLeod. Rich, please stand up, one of our candidates. There he is. Jim Keneally, there he is. And Mike Volk. Mike, there he is back there. Thank you, gentlemen. All 3 very qualified to serve in the role, and thank you for sticking yourself out there to be a part of the future of this amazing community. I guess you could say it is now open season on candidates. So the campaign officially starts today, and you'll hear more about the election and the ballot and stuff over the next 2 or 3 months. Let's talk about a strategic plan. Let's talk about what is a strat plan. A strat plan is an organization's defining its strategy or direction and making decisions on allocating its resources to attain strategic goals. Up to about 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have a strat plan. Let me tell you how ours came to be. In 2021, the board in place at that time saw the need to crystallize who are we now and who do we want to be as we continue to grow up. So in February of 21, the board at that time created a strategic plan task force. In March, they recruited cross-section of property owners to serve on that committee. In May of 21, an RFP, request for a proposal, was created to determine a means to get property owner feedback. June of 21, T4 Associates was selected as a vendor to develop and administer a Voice of the Community survey. August of 21, T4 survey was conducted. Got feedback from multiple means, one-on-ones, focus groups, online surveys, outbound emails, surveys. All of that data was fed back. We had 2,139 responses, which represented 53%. And statistically speaking, I always have trouble with that word. Statistically speaking, it represents all of us with having that high of a percentage. Then in November of 21, the task force presented the strategic plan to the board, and it was adopted. This is our vision statement. Big Canoe is a safe and secure residential community providing the harmonious integration of the natural beauty of the mountains with higher quality amenities and a well-maintained and updated infrastructure. High quality amenities, well-maintained and updated infrastructure. We're 52 years old, about my age. No, we're 52 years old as a community. And for those of us that are older than 52, we have a few cricks and stuff, and things need to be repaired along the way. Our community is no different. It is no different from your personal home. In your home, if you don't continue to invest in your home and keep your home well maintained, it will deteriorate. Well, all of our home is called Big Canoe. Let me share with you what we have spent over the last 4.5 years in annual operating capital. This does not mean any use of master fund plans or any loans. This is what we and you all have paid for on an annual basis. Since 2019 up until May of this year, we have spent over $20 million on our home called Big Canoe. What does all that add up to, Terry? Roads, I mean, you name it. It's a lot of money. We're nowhere near done. Nowhere near done. We're going to have to continue to invest in this community and do what's right for the majority and the overall benefit of this community. Because if we let our home, called Big Canoe, deteriorate, guess what happens to all of our home values? They also decline. And fortunately, over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a very positive appreciation of home values and everything. And we have to continue to do that. A vision statement should drive and guide action plans and activities in the community and serve as a context for decision making for both operations and POA leadership. That is our guiding light. That is our North Star. And everything that we do in here should be aligned with our 5 strategic objectives. You may ask, what are they? I just happen to have a slide for you. The first is our employees. The reason they're listed first, we don't make widgets and sell widgets. We create experience and property owner satisfaction. Scott is going to get into each one of these in extreme detail on what's been done just in the last 6 months. The second strat objective is our safety and security. We are not a high security compound surrounded by barbed wire and so forth. We're a gated community. But you know what? One of the reasons I bought here and one of the reasons my daughters approved of Dad buying here was because of the safety and security and the fact we have an on-site fire department with qualified professionals and EMTs and paramedics. Property owner experience. That's what this place is all about. We all could live anywhere, okay? But we all chose to live here for various reasons. Our assets, continuous improvement in our amenities and infrastructure. I've talked about that a few minutes ago, but we have got to continue to do that, and we will. Our governance. Let me show you something. See this binder right here? That's every covenant that we have. It's our bylaws. It's our rules and regulations. This is what governs our community. And this is what we have to follow when it comes to certain things. So, and these have been created over 52 years. Scott will get into a couple of those in just a minute. Any operational action plans and leadership decision-making needs to tie to at least one and hopefully more of the 5 strategic objectives. And Scott is going to outline for you how that's been going on we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, but what has transpired this year. And there's a lot of good work that's been done. But we're not done. The journey will continue. So let me turn the podium over to Scott. Scott, come on.
Can everybody hear me okay in the back? Terry and I spend a whole lot of time together, but we don't really want to share that microphone. So as Terry said, and I always say this, we don't sell little yellow boxes. We are a service company. That's what we do, whether it's raking sand traps or whether it's serving as in the Black Bear Pub or whether it's cleaning out a ditch. And none of that happens without amazingly talented, dedicated people, and we are really lucky that we have the people working here, some of whom have been here for 27, 30 years. I mean, Big Canoe actually does become their home too. So when we talk about how do we create the culture that attracts and retains, we've got to attract first. So the very first thing we do, and we've spent a lot of time on this with our Director of HR, Kathy Jones, the last 2 years, of making sure that are we paying commensurate with our surrounding communities. Think about it. If you're a line cook and you can get a job at probably any chain restaurant in America in Dawsonville, but now you got to get in your car maybe has bald tires, it's going to be really foggy going home. Why do you drive all the way to Big Canoe rather than just staying at Rustler Steakhouse over in Dawsonville? We've got to pay to make sure that it makes sense to that person to come here and to serve us. So we've spent a lot of time on competitive benchmarking. The board has supported that terrifically over the last couple of years, and we're now very, very competitive for all of our jobs with North Georgia. We also do a Christmas bonus. There aren't many companies left that have that culture. That went away probably with our pension plans that went away as well in my career. So that's kind of a nice thing. 401k with a 4% company match, pretty important for your future. If you're not saving, healthcare is not getting any cheaper. Speaking of which, health, vision, dental, life insurance, we do the best job we possibly can to have options for all of our employees. We have some very competitive rates, and we have some harder rates. When you get into family plans and stuff, we're in a small market, so it's a bit expensive, some of our healthcare. So we introduced an HSA. We actually help contribute to an employee when they sign up for an HSA. And just to give you an idea, sometimes, actually, fairly often, I hear, why can't the clubhouse make as much money or whatever as, the Lucky Hair or Home Restaurant or something? This year alone, $225,000 goes to our employee benefits at just the clubhouse. A lot of those folks were smart enough to say, we're building families, we're young, but we're getting married, we're having more children, we need to have a health care plan, and they took us up on the HSAs. So almost $250,000 right off the top of our profit and loss for the clubhouse goes right to our employees. And that's one of the reasons they're here. And that's really important. Because nobody else, by the way, around us, nobody else does that. If you're running a restaurant, honestly, you really kind of can't afford to do it. If you're luckily, because they're part of a bigger organization called Big Canoe, we can actually give them a good life. HSA, FSA, I told you about, and tuition reimbursement. A lot of folks take us up on this. Continuing education things, they'll go back to school, they'll work part-time in the summer here, and then come back and do some classes and things over in Jasper, and then come back to us the next year. So, then the next thing we did is we said, well, this is all great, but who knows about it? You don't know about it until you get here. We got to actually attract people. So we took a hard look at our website, the marketing team, Delane, Kat, Elisa, they looked at it and they said, this is a story that we're not telling, right? We look old and antiquated. Why do we do that? We've got this great story. So we also said, if you don't know what Big Canoe is, you might think it's a surf shop or something. I mean, what is Big Canoe? So we said we need to show prospective employees what a day in the life is like. So this is what we put together. This is what's on our website. Pretty cool, right? If you were thinking about getting a job and you look at that, number one, you might be a little scared of Hector. But you also would be like, wow, that looks like a cool guy that I like to work for and maybe could learn from. You also notice we spared no talent, no money on the talent, because it was all like whoever was in the pub that day were like, hi, come on, you're on camera, right? So anyhow, that has worked incredibly well for us. We also went a little further and said, well, let's look at what we've got on Indeed. That's still the biggest way people find jobs. And we took a look and we said, the story's not quite there. The benefits are kind of hidden. Let's get them up. Let's repost a lot and enhance our visibility on Indeed. And the numbers are actually pretty crazy for the last 6 months. So 57,000 impressions, a 5% click-through rate. If you grew up in marketing, you died for 1%. 5% is really great. 20% actually start an application, 68% complete it. We've done really well. You may have noticed, unlike last summer, which I'd like to sometimes forget about, Clubhouse hours have been rock solid. We haven't changed anything in probably all year, actually. We put the hours out and we keep the hours. We have been very, very fortunate. We're very well staffed in both back of the house and front of the house, and we want to keep it that way, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about Renew Big Canoe. Also worked on LinkedIn, and we've got a whole mess more people following us than we ever had before. Let's see. Other thing is, now we talk about we get them here. How do we keep them? How do we make sure that we retain these folks? We've had great success with Big Canoe Living. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we actually said, let's start a quarterly news magazine for our employees and tell them what's happening and new programs and new things they can take advantage of. Also things like a whole campaign around monthly challenges, learning opportunities. We've partnered with Cigna, which helps reduce also, our number of claims. If we're healthier, our insurance rates go down. That's a good thing. So we've done things like fitness challenge, stress relief seminars. I don't know why we need that, stress relief seminars, UV safety, hydration awareness, because the guys are out there today, like doing sand traps and mowing and things like that. It gets hot. So how do you take care of yourself and how do you prevent accidents before they happen? We've done a whole bunch of work with Cigna and brought that to our employees. And it's really been well received. We weren't sure, would people come to these things? Would they actually learn something? And they really have. Next thing, we do things like quarterly employee recognitions. That was Trina receiving her 100-year employment award. She's not here, but I'm going to hear about that. I know I am. Yeah, definitely. Canoe Connections, we brought that back. Steve Panetta is one of the best ambassadors in history for Big Canoe. He loves this place. I think the three colors bleed in his blood. He does a great job of indoctrinating new employees. So if you're visiting the clubhouse and you say, hey, I heard about some crazy thing that you slide down rocks or something like that, you want to make sure that our servers say, oh yeah, you're talking about the rock slide. That's right over here. Just get out in your car and do this and whatever. Steve has done a great job bringing that back to life for all of our new employees. We stopped it before COVID because we couldn't do it during COVID. It's back. Also things like employee intranet, just a way of being able to talk to employees on an ongoing basis. Believe it or not, after 52 years, we didn't have that. We have it now. Objective number 2 that was on the high-level strategic objectives is enhance the well-being and safety of our property owners, guests, and employees. Terry said it, but I guarantee you, Cindy and I would not have moved here if it wasn't for that. There's a lot of places in North Georgia that have beautiful cabins and stuff, but she was not going to be up there, by herself while I flew around the country or something. That just wasn't going to happen. But once we saw what was here and our own safety and our gates and everything, it changed everything. And that's why we live in Big Canoe. This is the fire training. That's Tim. That's me. It's really scary when you're standing up there and you're looking down that ladder and you're thinking these guys go up and down those ladders. No, not me, but they do. So again, you just you live their life a little bit, just a smidge, and you're like, wow, how do you do what you do? But thank God they do what they do. So this year, we did a lot on AED placement and training. This is a word that I stumble on, Terry. So automated external defibrillators. We put all the latest equipment all around all of our amenities this year and all of our POA buildings. And then you may know Captain Rice. He's usually a pretty fun-loving, happy guy. That's a pretty serious Captain Rice. And we went through a pretty serious training class. So all the senior staff, all the managers, making sure that we knew how to use that equipment and making sure that we were all CPR certified. Those guys can get to us in 4 to 5 minutes, depending on where they are and where we are, and get to you. But we want to make sure that we can get to you faster because we're already in the building. So we did a whole lot of training on that. Also, Terry mentioned this as well, about 1,200 hours so far this year of continual training. So every Thursday night, there's a training class that these fire and public safety guys, EMTs, all go through, and they have to do everything from live fire exercises all the way to, most of our guys are EMTs, thank heavens, and that keeps them certified. So amazing amount of commitment and hours spent on training. And this is the result of that amazing activity that Bob Troffenbaum co-led. We had kind of a burned out fire training facility. It had been state of the art at one time, long time ago, like many things in Big Canoe that we're catching up with. And it had gotten to the point where you couldn't even really use it anymore. So thanks to all of us, and thanks to what we were able to raise during that gala, we were able to build a brand new live fire training facility, and we opened that this spring. So now the guys can actually practice putting out live fires and dealing with hoses and entering burning buildings and all the things that they do for us if, heaven forbid, it needs to happen. Also, we have I should have brought the binder, but it's about that thick. Actually, it's the same as Terry's, except it's red, and that's called the Red Book. And there is a emergency action plan in there for everything. It goes everything from pandemics to issues with the dam, to wildflowers, to shooter type things. It's all in there. And it's lovely to have binders. It's great. Binders are terrific. But if you don't bring them to life and you don't practice with them, and we don't all know how to use it, and by the way, a lot of this is with our partners right here, Pickens County and Dawson County, have to be engaged in that process as well, because a lot of it, we may notify the county, but the county actually does the response and helps us in a situation, such as a wildfire or something like that. So anyway, we did the dam last year. This year, we are going to do a wildfire simulation. And so there's a bunch of training we go through before we even start the simulation. And then we bring together all the counties, all the EMA directors from the counties, the sheriff's office, the fire chiefs, our partners at AEMC, our partners at UIG. All of us have to work together at the Emergency Operations Center to get through something as big as a wildfire or a dam break. So we practice, we train, and we practice. So that's coming up later this year too. This is just our dashboard. I know I present this every single month. It's kind of interesting to look back and see 6 months of it. So about 2 to 1 still on residents to guests in terms of citations. And this doesn't surprise any of us. It's traffic. We have 2 traffic trailers now. The one on the dam has been really successful between the leaving it on the dam and having the speed bumps on the dam. There's almost nothing being generated there now. We're all behaving very nicely when we cross the dam, and that's good because there's a lot of wildlife on the dam as well. So that's the good news. The bad news is now we're going to start moving the trailer around a little bit more, because I do get a lot of calls every week about, hey, somebody almost did this. They swerved. I had to swerve into the ditch. One gentleman just had 2 tires ruined because they were forced off the road that he told me about. So it is important. It's not fun, and sometimes I see that trailer and I look down, I catch myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like 45 here. It's 25. What am I doing? So just be aware. I know we all know the roads too well, and we need to just slow down a tad. Okay, number 3, why we're really here is to serve and to have fun and to enhance the property owner and guest experience. So let's take a look at that. First of all, Big Canoe Living. We had gotten to the point where we were sending out our inside the gates, inside your inbox, and it was getting to be about that long. And the other thing we learned with data, and the marketing team is like infatuated with data now. Everything we do, we measure, we look at it, we see whether it made sense and whether we do it again or how can we improve it, was everybody's using their phones. So you don't sit too often anymore in front of your desk computer and read, a big communication from the POA. So we said, how do we change this? How do we get the word out on all these great things that are happening here? And we discovered this idea of an e-magazine. This has been, I think, a runaway success this year. So we have, every 2 weeks now, we send this out to 4,200 property owner emails. We've done 20 issues this year, 44,638 reads, and the average read time, and again, this is on a phone, so we may be sitting, in the clubhouse or something, is almost 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and that number is growing somewhat. So we're getting the word out. We hear wonderful things from y'all all the time about this is terrific, this meets my needs, keep doing this, and we make it kind of easier and easier. You can click on things and go right to register and things like that. So you don't have to go back home, remember later, what website was that, where did I see that? It's all in the magazine. Past events, so we've been busy. We're only halfway through the year, but it's been busy. So holidays and events, we did Fitness Friends to kick off the year, which is, okay, we gained some weight over the holidays. How do we lose it at the fitness center? Did Valentine's shops, Easter egg hunt, which I think set a new record for the Easter egg hunt. We need more volunteers next year for the Easter egg hunt. Independence Day celebration we just had, and yes, the fireworks will be longer next year. I promise. I was out there too, like, okay, more? No, okay, next year longer. Day trips, we brought those back. It used to be a tradition at Big Canoe. So Hamilton has happened, the Braves game has happened, Les Mis has happened. You probably saw, if you looked at your inside, if you saw your Big Canoe Living, there's another Braves trip. It's probably almost sold out by now. It is not with the Orioles, unfortunately, but it's with the Dodgers. So Braves, Dodgers, good matchup, very good matchup. Men's member guests, of course, and junior camps. All the junior camps have just been phenomenal success, and I think every one of them sold out this summer. Coming up, there it is, September 15th. Quick, everybody. No, don't do it. Don't pick up your phone, but that'll be an amazing series against Dodgers and Braves. October Festival, otherwise known as Oktoberfest. We're doing that a little earlier this year. You might ask, why are we doing this a little earlier? We followed the Georgia football schedule. So let's just be honest, we're in SEC territory. So they are not that afternoon, they're that night. So we're okay, that's good. We can all come, and we're trying to make this the biggest Oktoberfest we've had. So I think now we have like 26 vendors lined up at this point. Obviously, there'll be great food trucks and bring back more of the kids zone like we used to have. So a lot of things that we did, we're trying to bring back. And also trunk or treat on the 26th. So what's new at the clubhouse? The heartbeat of our community is really, that's where we are together. That's where we mingle. That's where we interact. It's not just a restaurant. It's our gathering place, really. So what's new this year? Pizza. We've done really, really well with pizza, so well that we've had to get Chef a double pizza oven, which finally I think is almost here to be installed, so we can do more pizzas, because that has done extremely well, and they're quite delicious. If you haven't tried one, do it. They're really, really good. Food and drink specials came back this year. So Hector normally does almost a daily special now. He'll send that to the marketing team. The marketing team will send it out on Facebook on events and happenings. And actually, that is the special for this week. So let's see, an hour and 15 minutes, right? It's basically steak flatbread and quite lovely and yummy. Drink specials, all kinds of dessert specials, bringing back a lot of stuff that we wanted to do last year that we just couldn't do. And this year it's back. And then clubhouse events, everything from obviously every single major holiday to we actually have our own bourbon. And rumor has it that bourbon is really smooth and really, really, really good. Folks tried it at the men's member gas. It went over really well. So Paul brought it in as a permanent. So we have a Legends 87 Big Canoe bourbon that is available. And all kinds of things. Again, Mother's Day brunch. You know, every single holiday we try to make it an event and a chance to get together at the clubhouse. Beach Bites has done very nicely this year. That's our team right across the road there. They will have a very busy weekend, I think. Things like frozen drinks came to life this year. You gotta stay hydrated when you go to the beach. Yes, we have bottled water also, but but those are really yummy. You can get them alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and they're doing a happy hour now, which is after 5, a discount on that after everybody's going home to wash off the sand and stuff. It's a beautiful place to hang out for a little while and have a late evening or early evening cocktail. Number 4, spend a lot of time. Terry mentioned the amount of money in 4 years, $20 million. It's all going to this kind of stuff. Big Canoe looked great in some cases from the outside, but underneath not so good. And in other cases, there were areas that looked really tired. And we've been investing a lot to catch up because we are 52 years old. And for a while, it had been sort of left to age gracefully on its own. We're fixing that. So first thing, always paving. So every year, that's about $1 million, 92 miles of roads that we deal with. So this year, 3,300 tons of asphalt, 2,500 gallons of tack, 3 miles of roads, and we have no poor roads left. So every single year, we bring in consultants. They drive every road in Big Canoe, and they write down where the patches need to be, where there's road shoulder problems or general condition of the road. And 4 years ago, there was a lot that were in the poor category. We don't have that anymore. So now we're able to start looking at the ones that are like, oh, they're okay. Can we keep them from becoming poor? So we're getting to that point, which is awesome. Of 150 tons of asphalt used for patching. We patch a lot of things. Emma Colola has been upgrading our infrastructure. Thank heavens for our power infrastructure. They've got a couple more years to go on that process. And UIG, which you may have come to the UIG little meeting we did a few weeks or months ago. They've invested a whole bunch of capital because our water system was incredibly fragile a few years ago. Much more reliable now, but it causes holes in our roads, and then we have to fix it. 1,500 gallons of paint will be used to stripe everything. We're doing that now. 7,000 pounds of reflective beads that we put into those striping so they actually last longer and actually look reflective. And 700 of those beautiful reflectors, which come in real handy on the mountains on foggy nights. Slip lining culverts. A year and a half ago, I would have stood up here and said, I have no idea how many culverts we have. And not only do I not know how many culverts we have, I don't even know where they are. Kind of goes together. So we found every one. So we actually have a GIS mapping now of the entire community, and we're filling in all the different GIS things, whether it's sewer lines, power lines, transformers, or culverts. It'll all be on a GIS map, so that way in the future, someone's not standing up here saying, I don't know where the culverts are. So we have about 700 of those, and most of them were corrugated metal pipe, and most of them are 50-some years old, and most of them are in that kind of condition. And that is not water in the culvert, that is no bottom in the culvert. So the culverts aren't supposed to work that way. They need to carry water so they don't drop it. So we are now starting a very aggressive, and this will be multi-year, so you'll see this in the capital budget probably over the next 4 years. Every year, we'll probably spend something on the order of $200,000 to slip line all these culverts. And that's really important because if it's not done correctly, A, your road can fall in. That's not good because it just ruined what we just did on the paving. And number two, we get a lot of complaints, which are justifiable. When it rains as hard as it did this week, all that mud and stuff comes out of the ditches and goes right down property owner driveways. And I get the phone call, or Lydell gets the phone call, and they're right. I mean, but it's because that infrastructure has failed. And so we're catching up. This is someone that we all know. So 2 years ago, this lovely lady, Liz Shear, preceded Bob Troffenbaum by 2 years. She was our Person of the Year a couple years ago for the Trails Committee. And Liz is so detailed that we said sort of the same thing about the culverts. Liz, we don't know where all of our signs are because nobody kept track of that over the years. We'd like to get all that on the GIS map. And can you also assess the condition of each of those signs? And that turned into, while you're assessing the condition of each of those signs, can you paint them? And she has. And so all of our signs are not, the standard thing you order on eBay with the reflective bearer or something. That's not the kind of signs that we have at the character of Big Canoe. These are all cedar, and they're all made in the sign shop, and a lot of them had worn out. So we have about 47 property directional signs and 271 directional signs at intersections. And so she has been making them all look gorgeous. One of those things you don't notice, but you notice when they fall down, or you notice when they're rotting out and things like that. So we're catching up on even little things like our signs. This one's fun. Wes is going to talk a lot more about this, and I showed this at the last board meeting, but not everybody comes to the last board meeting. So this is Scott's desk, and this is a piece of paper. And logos catch my attention, and especially ones that say Georgia Safe Dams on them catch my attention. So when I walk in the morning and Elaine or Jane has put something on my desk, if it says Sheriff's Office, I pay attention. And if it says Georgia Safe Dams, I pay attention right away before I go get my tea in the morning. So we'll take you a little closer, and we want to focus in on this. And basically, they said to us, you are approved for your permit application to do the construction projects we need, and that was nice, that's good. But the thing that we've been working so hard on for literally 3 years has been, we basically are approving the stability analysis of Lake Pettit Dam and saying the dam meets the requirements of the 1978 Georgia Safe Dams Act. For my friend over here, Bob, who was on the board, chair of the board in 2000 and something or other, we have been trying for 20 years to get Georgia Safe Dams to unequivocally say, are we good from a stability point of view, or is there more work that we need to do on the dam? And they have now, with a whole bunch of calculations and a whole bunch of peer reviews, and even Geosyntec's competitor reviewing Geosyntec's calculations, they have said, you're in, you're good, the dam meets all requirements, you may now proceed to do all the other construction projects and things that you need to do. So that was a really happy day, and long time coming. Something not quite as serious as dams is pickleball. And you probably noticed this year, we now, we took our two outdoor asphalt courts and turned them into 6 more pickleball courts. So we now have 10, which is a pretty good number. And why did we do that? We did that because there's been a 50% growth in pickleball membership over the last 2 years. And this was the first year then that we could actually do pickleball camps, which did quite well, $4,800 of revenue in 2 weeks, and 63% increase in pickleball play over the last 2 years. So we now have the facility we need to actually be able to do fun things with pickleball and to keep up with the demand. And yes, I know everybody wants, now they're like, we need indoor pickleball courts. And that's probably true, but that goes into a whole master planning discussion that Terry will talk about in a bit. Aquatics infrastructure, this has been brought up by a few property owners over the last few years. Wildcat was getting a bit tired also because it wasn't built 52 years ago, but it's been a while. And so we replastered both the pool across the street as well as Wildcat and all the fencing. You can't sort of get excited about fencing until you see the picture, and then you're like, wow, that looks really nice. It didn't look that nice this time last year, and the whole thing was kind of going like this, and the kids could rattle it, and it wasn't really safe, and so we fixed it. So all that was done at Wildcat and Beach Club this year. Choctaw Pump House, again, one of those things we don't talk about. You know, you don't drive on the pump, but it's very important because it provides all the water for both Creek and Choctaw. The irrigation plans for both of those, when we redid the golf courses and are redoing the golf course, we said let's actually combine them and have one state-of-the-art pump house that will manage the irrigation, not waste a lot of water, allow the guys to have on demand and just water the areas that need to be watered. So it kind of fits with our strategic plan of being more environmentally conscious and being good stewards of the mountains that we live in. So all of that was just done this year. The old pump house is used for the tennis courts because we have clay courts. You have to water clay courts, and also backup. If that ever needed to go down for maintenance or something, we can use the old pump. So that was in our approved capital plan that was part of this year's budget. Not cheap, but necessary. And many of you know, I'm like a fanatic about the Blue Ridge Parkway. I love the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's one of my favorite places to go. I read the engineering books about how they built the parkway. Any chance we get, and we can upgrade old rotten wooden infrastructure around here. Wood doesn't hold up well in the mountains, and it gets dangerous. And that's kind of getting to be like, the railing is kind of going like this, and the steps are, you know. We did all the playfield stairs behind us over the last couple years, finally caught up on the restroom stairs and the stairs that go up to Buck Skull. So we now, when we have a chance, we replace things with things that will last for many, 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 many years, so we don't have to redo this every 6 years. And also, while we're at it, we make it look beautiful. So you really kind of, I get excited about restroom stairs, actually. It looks really nice. When you look at playfield, it's very sharp, and it's safe, and it's going to last. And now let's talk briefly about Renew Big Canoe. Last year, and probably actually the year before that, probably 2 years ago on this very day, I was standing up here showing like drawings or something. Here's a hypothetical of what we might do with the post office. We have come so far in 2 years. And it is exciting for me to say a year from now, I'm going to be standing here, actually, maybe here, maybe over at the clubhouse. We haven't talked about that yet. And this is going to be our new gathering place for Big Canoe. And the exciting part is, bang, construction starts on September 2nd, 2024. That's getting here like 7 weeks away. Now, you might say, why September? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you wait a little bit longer to do that? We're in a race. We're in a race to get this done before next summer's busy season. Our two busiest months of the whole year are June and July. If we miss June and July, you miss an awful lot of revenue. Not only that, you create a huge problem, because we're going to talk about dining in a little while. The dining will move across the street there. So you imagine like dealing with the beach club and all that, and dining and the wellness center. We really want to get into the clubhouse before it gets super, super busy. So we are literally in a race to do that. And every week we delay is 1 week that it shoves us further into next summer. So nothing is perfect in the world. You have to make concessions all the time. That's our best concession, is get started and get it done and get us back in there. So the person who's going to help us all, the board, myself, with this is a gentleman right over here, and his name is Sam Harmon. And Sam is our owner's representative. He's been on board since the beginning of June, very involved in the selection of the general contractor. Sam's background starts with the TVA a long time ago, which may come in handy in the future with some of the dam work that we're going to be doing, and a lot of background in industrial construction And more importantly, is he was the guy that sat between the general contractor and the people who were the ultimate customer. And he was always having to be the one who mediated those discussions and made sure that the budgets were on track and the change orders are being dealt with and all of that. And that's what we need out of an owner's rep. So the general contractor that we've chosen, McAllen Works, they have a full-time project manager. And they have a full-time site supervisor. And those guys are going to be like on this project, like white on rice. I mean, just constantly. But as things come up, and things always come up in construction, Sam becomes our single point of contact into that world. So he will be the single point for the GC. He'll validate all the change orders and make sure that they all get approved by the right people. He's going to track our schedule, track our budget, make sure that nothing is happening that we don't want to happen, perform work in progress inspections, again, making sure that as the contractor is asking for draws, that the work has been done properly. Liaison to Big Canoe communications team. Believe me, in Big Canoe Living, we will be updating you guys every 2 weeks. Lots and lots of pictures and where are we and what the progress is and videos. This is a big deal. It's been a long time since Big Canoe did something this exciting and this meaningful, I think, to the community. It's fun to fix roads, and it's really good that we fix dams, but not many people get to enjoy that too much. This one we get to enjoy. So we will share progress, trust me, as we go through. And also reviewing all the invoicing, again, making sure when Jane says, is it okay to pay this person or this draw, Sam will be the one that says yes or no. But Sam cannot do this by himself. This is a big deal. So this is where y'all come in. Basically, we'd like searching for 3 to 4 people, 3 to 4 good people that basically would like to join the clubhouse renovation steering team. This is something we started when we did the creek renovation. We've carried it on to the Choctaw renovation, and we want to carry it on here. We actually form a steering team. It's made up of a liaison from the board. It's made up of a leader, and it's made up of key people that can bring different perspectives to that team. So that way there's a group of people Sam can go to and say, hey, we just ran into this problem. We can move this wall here, or we could do this, or do you want to change the tile to this or whatever, so that it's not falling on one person's shoulders. That's not fair, and it's not a good idea anyway. And then Sam can bring that information to me and bring that information into the board. So the kind of skills we're looking for: must be a property owner. That's kind of important. Construction experience would be nice. Design background could be very nice. You don't need all these, by the way. We're trying to get a multifunctional group together. Project management experience would be very useful. Hospitality experience. That's why we're here, and the clubhouse needs to shine for hospitality. And event planning experience would also be something that would be useful. So this came out in Big Canoe Living yesterday. There's an e-form that you can fill out. You can attach your resume. It's all going to go to Sam. This is how we built the strategic planning team also that Terry talked about. We got a bunch of interesting people, sorted through qualifications, did some quick interviews. This is not like a scary job interview, but some quick interviews, and selected a team of people that will then work with Sam, work with me, work with the board over the next 10 months while we're under construction. So if you're really interested, go to Big Canoe Living yesterday, and you can use the form. Choctaw renovation, I talked about that a little bit. This is Choctaw 9, actually. So this is where we moved the T forward, created this beautiful new T box here. That was always a terrible, terrible shot to go from those, even the forward T on Choctaw 9, and carry all of that to get to the green. So the T's been moved forward, and the cart path is all being realigned so you don't get lost, because many people got lost coming off of the T and ended up driving towards the clubhouse, or ended up, over at the refuse area or something like that. So we're fixing all that. So anyway, the budget was $3.59 million, including the contingency and including the Choctaw 9, which the board voted publicly to add later on. Contingency so far, we've used $74,000 of that. Run into some areas where we found, with all the crazy rain we had, it slowed down construction a smidge, but it also showed us how the drainage was working. So that was kind of fun because then Liddell and Jameson could get out there and say, hey, Bill Bergen, I think we got to add a couple more drains in this area and stuff. So we made sure that we got it 100% right. So some road boring where we had to get underneath some utilities and things like that. We're about 52% of the way through. They're doing, most of the shaping's finished. They're doing irrigation install now. And soon, like maybe even next week, they're going to start grassing. And that's always the big moment when you start to put the grass back down. Number one, it keeps your erosion from happening. It also keeps all their shaping in place, but it also means you're getting close. Then it just grows and looks more beautiful heading into next year. So coming down the home stretch here on Choctaw. And last but not least, objective number 5. How do we make decisions for the governance of Big Canoe in a transparent, ethical, and fiscally responsible manner? So this is so hot off the press. I hate to do this to them. This is so hot off the press that the board hasn't even seen all this yet. That's dangerous. So, but we're giving you a sneak preview here, and then I think there'll be a lot of questions that come out of this, and we have a lot of data then that we can go mine, because census is really important. So thank you all. It was way back in March, seems like a million years ago. We went out and said it's time to do a census. It's been 3 years. It's really important to understand who we are as a community because it drives the strategic plan and it drives the decisions we make on how we spend our money. So we just got this back, and we went, by the way, we said we don't want to bias this thing, and we also want to make sure that the analysis is done as it should be. So we went back to T4, the company that helped us so much that Terry talked about with the strategic plan, and they used one of their team members runs a group called the Lauren Group, and they did the analysis for us. So this way, it's done right. We just didn't sit in a room and make it up. 1,282 Big Canoe property owners responded to the 2024 census. That's about 45%, which according to that company that is a really good number. You don't normally get that for a community. It was in the field from March 15th to March 30th, both electronically. We also had paper versions, so no one was left out. If somebody didn't, feel comfortable with electronic, they could come in and get it on paper. The result of all that is the margin of error at a 95% confidence level for that sample size is plus or minus 3%. Good. And that is very, very comparable to what we had for the 2018 and the 2021 census. So that made them feel good that we can actually go back now and compare 3 years and compare 3 years. So who are we? This is kind of interesting. Right now in 2024, we are an average of 67 years old. We have 1.8 full-time residents per household. 95% of us own a property with a home, although 15% of that also owns an empty lot. We'll talk about that in a second. And 76%, and this is good, I'll explain why in a second, 76% of us say this is our primary residence. And in case you were worried, as we were actually in 2021, we were worried about, are we really a residential community? Are we starting to become a VRBO thing? What's happening there? Fewer than 5% actually rent their residences to other people. That's corroborated. I checked with Trina, and she has all the rental registrations, and she looks at, as a percentage of the number of houses. It's like 6%. So 5 to 6% are in the rental program at Big Canoe. Pretty low number given that we have 3,000 homes. 33%, interesting, the world has changed. 67-year-olds now are not like 67-year-olds in 1950. 33% are currently employed, full or part-time, and half of those people say that they plan to retire within the next 5 years. So that is interesting for us as you think about demands for programming, demands for amenities, other things of that nature. It's going to be more time available to enjoy Big Canoe. So this is really fun, is then to go back and look. So some of this is a little bit of a myth buster, because sometimes what you read on Facebook isn't right. So we're actually getting older. So in 2018, the average age here was 62. The average age in 6 years later is 67. You can imagine a lot of reasons why that might be true, and we can dig more into this data, and that's what I said. Think of this as kind of a teaser, because I'm sure the board's going to be, hey, we'd like to know, so would we. And we have all the raw data going back, so we can dig also. But, it could be Wellness Collaborative does an amazing job here. So now people can stay longer, right? They feel safer. They can stay longer in their homes. That's a good thing. Can also mean we're more physically fit. Got a great fitness center. We all value, I think, health more than maybe 6 years ago even. So you may have some of that going on. You may have some of the economics going on, which is, hey, where would we go if we sold our house? Yes, we can get a lot more money for our house, but it's costing a lot more money to go someplace else. So where would we go? So you have all of that kind of playing in, but we are getting a bit older. And so you need to think about that as we plan our future and our planning and our facilities. Really, type of property owned and length of ownership here have remained fairly consistent. Okay, that's interesting. If you look at, this is 18, 21, 24, the kind of purplish is home ownership only. This is, I own both home and lot. So home and lot is getting a little bit bigger. People that own a home but have also purchased a lot. I'm in that box. And it could be that we're like, oh, I love it here, and I love my house, but I'm thinking ahead to when I retire, and I might want to build a different kind of home, maybe less levels, something like that. So we're buying a lot, and someday we'll sell our house, right? So that's kind of interesting. Years owned hasn't changed much, about 10. And if you think about, this is always interesting to me, if you think about, we churn about 200 homes a year. It was a little higher during COVID, but if you look back over those 6 years, right, that would say at least 1,200, maybe 1,500 people are new. We're not here when we did that first census. So we have a lot of us that have only experienced Big Canoe over the last 10 years, with COVID kind of sitting in the middle. That's different from the folks that are like, oh, I remember when we used to do something differently. So we have kind of an interesting mix of population that we need to think about. And our growth rate is small, which you can, on one hand, it's nice, right? We're this community, and we're tight, and we're not like hugely expanding and all those kind of things. On the other hand, when Terry says, hey, we're not done with our infrastructure, that means there's not a lot of new assessment people coming in here, right? There's not a lot of people where we can say, hey, we've got all these new residents who are going to pay these assessments, and that's going to fund all the things that we need to do. So if the growth rate's not too large, then that means we need the developers sometimes to do some really good things, maybe, in a way that helps us all grow and offset some of those costs. We just need to make sure that it's all within the character of Big Canoe, that's all. So 3% growth rate. We're not getting crazy huge, again, some of those misnomers about, oh, we're changing. We're not. We're turning. We do about 20 new houses a year. That's it. And this one's great, actually. I love this one. Number of residents calling Big Canoe their primary home is on the rise. That's good. That means we're not becoming a rental community. That means that, 76% of us, we may own another house somewhere, but this is our primary home. This is where our home base, this is where our roots are, and that's good, because that means we have more people that are invested in the community, more people that are active in the community, more people that want to make sure it's kept up and becomes wonderful for the future. If that was going the other way, that would terrify me. That would say, oh my gosh, we're becoming, oh yeah, I just have a place up there, whatever, but my real home is down here in Florida. That takes us in a really weird, different direction. So that's really good news. And I think that's all I have for right now on that. And we'll talk more about that as we dig in with the board on what else would we like to pull out of that. So maybe in December or a future board meeting, we can give you a little more detail. All right, financials. I won't scare you too much with all of this. I'll kind of give you the bottom line. This is year-to-date net income through May. We're 1 week off on having June. I'll have June actually Monday morning. We'll have a finance committee meeting this week, and then we'll have another board meeting in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about the first half of the year. But through May, basically every amenity here is either at or above budget. Some of them are crushing it. Like golf has had an amazing year. We thought we'd have a lot more fall off because of the Choctaw renovation. Mike has done a great job of managing the tee sheet, and the groups have been very, willing to make some changes and things like that. So we're doing quite well on golf. And you can see our racket club, honestly, a lot of that's pickleball. And Jessica also extended the hours a bit, doing quite well on racket as well. Marina, still always strong. A little bit harder this year. You're not going to continue to see marina growth like this, but they're doing well. Put all that together, we're $158,000 net income better than budget. And nice to see, compared to last year, $78,000 better than we were this time last year on the amenities. So roll that into all of Big Canoe, and you get this. So year-to-date through May, this is our operating revenue, operating expenses, the amenities, net income before depreciation, which means cash. We are $221,000 better than budget at the end of May, which also is $28,000 better than last year. And last year was a pretty good year. We ended up the year 180-some thousand to the good at the end of the year. So strong performance through May. And then if you put depreciation into it, because we have to depreciate all these assets that we're putting in, we're still basically $233,000 better than budget, even with the depreciation. And you can see right there that our depreciation number is much worse than, much bigger, would be a better way to say that, much bigger than 2023. And the reason is everything that we've been talking about. So every investment we make in Big Canoe gets depreciated. And for a long time, all those assets were done. They had already reached their end of life. We were still using them, but they had reached their end of life. Now, as we refresh all this, that depreciation number is going to keep getting bigger. But we're in good shape coming out of May. And total cash, this is an important slide because you live and die in a business with cash. Looking across, this is our operating account, our capital fund. This is where our master plan is. Really, a better name would be the CCF fund, because that's the only thing that goes in here is our CCF money when a house is sold. And our capital reserve fund, which we set aside, and that's our emergency fund. We would, if we ever used it, we'd have to pay it back within 3 years. We just ignore it. It just sits there and gets bigger, and it's our rainy day fund, like if we had huge tornadoes or something. So you look across all of that, basically. We started out the year with $8.2 million. We've added $2.8 million of cash throughout May. We've consumed 3.3, almost 3.4. That's paying down all of the principal on our Wells Fargo loan, paying off the fire truck, and we have some golf course equipment that we also finance. And then this is all the money through May that we had spent on capital, and that's before we did the paving. So when you see this in 2 weeks in June, when Jane takes us through that number will be well over 3. But you put all that together, we are now sitting there at $7.7 million of cash, even though we have basically funded 3.3 of loan payments, financing payments, and capital spend. So a good cash position for Big Canoe coming out of May. And I'm done for a minute, and we'll let Terry talk some more about board goals.
Thank you, Scott. I had about an hour more presentation in my material, but I'm going to do everybody a favor and say, you have any questions, get with me later. No, we have a hard stop at 12 o'clock because there's a meeting in here. So I'm going to cover board goals in a very brief fashion because we still have some important things to cover on the agenda. So let's talk about board goals. Why do we have them? This board, when we convened for our first meeting in December, after the December Town Hall, we made the decision we wanted to identify some very high-level board goals. That does not include the many, many, many other goals we have individually and objectives or anything like that. But these are kind of like overarching board goals. I'm going to touch, there are 4: develop process for short and long-term planning, continue to partner and improve relationship with Big Canoe Company. I love you, Mike. Love you guys. Improve board communication with property owners, and finalize, resolve ongoing UIG negotiations. I'm going to take each one of these and I'm going to go through them briefly, if you will. As I mentioned earlier, our strategic plan is our guiding light. But guess what? We are not just a gated neighborhood. We're a town. Everything in our boundaries is the responsibility of ours except water and electricity. So we need to start looking at ourselves at something a higher level other than just a neighborhood. And if you ever wanted to know the definition of a town, you now know it. An area that has a name, Big Canoe. Defined boundaries, yes. A government called POA. And that is generally larger than a village and smaller than a city. And we have a chapel in the middle of us. So that's the way that this board wants to plan for the future. I mentioned earlier we have 7 directors, 6 that are elected. Think about it. Every 366 days, the majority of the board changes and the personality of the board changes because it's 2 every year. Okay? So we don't want to go, okay, let's go this way for a year. Boop, boop. Oh, let's go this way for a year. Oh, let's go this way. Or, oh, let's don't do anything for a year. We have got to put a process that will stand the test of time based on input from everybody that lives here. We're doing additional research. We have plans to meet with some neighboring communities who have done a really good job in planning certain parts of their town and city because we want to learn from the professionals. Then we'll create a list of recommendations and then we'll determine what our next step is. And this will be done side by side with Big Canoe Company because they're a key part of our community. We also want to continue our data collection. Scott just covered the census. We are going to do another Voice of the Community survey at the right time. So stay tuned for that. Goal number 2, improve relationship with Big Canoe Company. It was not a good relationship a couple of years ago, to be quite honest with you. It was not. But with the new ownership and everything that acquired Big Canoe Company about 2.5 years ago, we are now communicating proactively. And it's vital because they cannot be successful without us and we cannot be successful without them. I showed you my little pretty binder and I saw a lot of smiles. I carry that binder everywhere I go. We've got governing documents that we have to follow. And the 05 covenants was a significant point in time in our 52-year history where the POA was transferred 22 rights. We've got 20 that's shared. And then we've got 35 rights that Big Canoe Company has retained. And we all agree on the covenants. We don't always agree on the interpretation of what a particular one says. That's why we have to continue to have informal meetings, which we are, by the way. I can't say enough positive things about the relationship and vibe that this board is experiencing with Big Canoe Company, and you'll hear from Mike in a minute. As I said, I'm going through this real quick. Third goal, improve communication with property owners. All boards have communicated, okay? And we wanted to do some additional things to improve upon it because I hear sometimes the board never communicates. We do our best, and we're doing more this year than what we've done. If you've noticed, at every public board meeting, there's additional detailed information that is shared. Sometimes people say, Terry, why don't you shut up? Why do you talk too much? You don't give us enough detail. You need to give us more detail. Our board meetings are a little longer that is intentional to share information with the community. We also have community meetings. We had one on April 20th, one on June 5th, and guess where we are today? Here's the one that is most impactful, at least in Terry's opinion. We've got Big Canoe Living, so wonderful publication. That's all about lifestyle, amenities, and fun, and going to the Braves game and all of that. We thought about having a section for board update about the business, but we thought, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do it independently and separate. Let Big Canoe Living do their thing and let us do our thing. So, these are examples of what we have done so far in 6 months. On January 25th, there was a publication that went out to the entire community. And think about it, there's 50 to 70 people that attends our public board meetings. There's maybe another 100 online. And there's another 400 or 500 that watches the video. So all total, on any given month, there's probably 600 or 700 people that receive or seek out what is going on. We've got over 6,000 potential votes in here. We've got 2,900 homes. We wanted to touch more people. So with this separate communication that we've been sending out, we sent it out to 4,100, 4,200, 4,300 emails every time we send one of these. And guess what our open rate is? 78%. That's your open rate. That is incredibly high. So on any given communication that goes out, there's over 3,000 people that open up the email. Now, whether they read it, who knows? That's up to them, okay? But at least we know they opened it. So we're touching basically 5 times the number of property owners that we touched previously. Goal number 4, finalize and resolve ongoing UIG negotiations. This started in 2017 and 18. Over 50% of our neighbors was not here in 2017 and 18. So let me give you a very brief history on why we're even talking about negotiations with UIG. Prior to 18, our water system was in extreme disrepair. Extreme disrepair. The previous owners did not invest in the infrastructure. We had 73% water loss. Imagine if we had 100 one-gallon jugs up here filled with water, and we took 73 of them off. That means what's left is the water that was actually being utilized. So it was in extreme disrepair. The previous board, they knew they had a problem, and I congratulate the previous boards for addressing some very difficult issues. We're better off today because they did. Their option was either to legally take over the previous water company or find a potential buyer for the previous water company, because there was going to be a catastrophic failure at some point unless something was done. That's where UIG came into the picture. They purchased the previous water company in 2018. And that same year, the board worked with UIG to put together what is called a Service Level Operating Agreement, SLOA, that has KPIs and everything associated with it. It's a legal contract in 2018. UIG said, we're going to invest $8.5 million in the water system. So far, they've invested $9 million in the water system. Negotiations are going on right now, and I had a text from the president of UIG, ironically yesterday afternoon, on this, with our intent to modify the rate calculations. Bearing in mind, in 18, there was a hard, firm contract. Well, we're trying to get them to agree, and we're talking, hey, let's maybe calculate rates a little bit different than what was agreed to 6 years ago. So we'll see how that goes, but I will say we're talking, and you can get more things done talking than you can not talking or just sending emails. Tiffany Van Horn, who's the president of UIG, today is her 26th anniversary. She chose to spend today with her husband instead of all of her friends. So she sent this quote, okay? UIG takes great care in providing the best possible service to the Big Canoe residents. We value our relationship with the board and appreciate the constant effort to increase communications. The direct and often contact with Terry and with Scott allows us to address concerns or problems timely. Last sentence is important. All of it is, but the last sentence in particular. Although it's taken a long time, we are making progress on the negotiations, and I remain hopeful. We remain hopeful too. The definition of which one, hope may vary depending on whether you're talking to Tiffany or talking to us. But the point is, that's a major goal that we have. So that concludes a very brief summary of the board goals. I've got all the detail you want if you want to follow up meetings or conversations. I've said a lot about Big Canoe Company, so I want to turn the microphone over to Mike, and you probably need a mic. Get it?
Test.
Come right on up, Mike. All right.
Wow, lots of people. Thank you for coming and allowing me the opportunity to bring up to speed on Big Canoe Company. Your involvement is greatly appreciated. I had a high school teacher tell me once that in public speaking, just imagine that everybody was naked and you all look amazing. So thank you. Over the last 2 weeks, there's been a few internet posts that has given us some notoriety. I'll cover hopefully both of those events. The first was July 6th at 9:20 p.m. on Lake Pettit. The Big Canoe pontoon boat had a few greasy sausages, and through some quick work of chip rice, the sausages were extinguished, and the only fatalities were the sausages. The second topic I hope to address through the rest of this presentation, so bear with me as I go through it. But our role here as principals in Big Canoe Company began about 2 years ago. Myself, Wayne Bruce, and Curtis Burkett, sitting back here in the corner, formed a new company called Big Canoe Holdings Group and acquired Big Canoe Company. And that was not an easy task. Together, the three of us had over 70 years of experience with development, design, and building here inside of this Big Canoe ecosystem. We were not strangers to what was going on and felt like we were the best then and the best today. And we are the perfect group to complete the development of this asset. As we grew, we realized the benefits of bringing an equity partner to our team. No different than our predecessor, Mr. Bill Byrne, did when he partnered with the Greenwood Development Group back in 2004. Big Canoe Company prides itself on being a faith-based company, so we began to interview various groups to fill this role and join the venture with us. After a few disappointments and many interviews, we found our new partners, who brought tremendous value to this project and also understand the history and the vision of this amazing community. As we work together, it has become abundantly clear that we made the correct choice. The principals of this group are Mark Kukalski and Thomas Schaefer. Mark was going to be here today, but he is in the process of moving his family to Big Canoe and will arrive here full-time on the 1st of August. He's currently in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, wrapping up his move today as we speak. Big Canoe Company has no partnerships with Wyndham Resorts Worldwide. Mark Kukalski was the former president and chief executive officer of Wyndham prior to his retirement. Mark is a strong business leader with hands-on experience in operating world-class food and beverage operations, luxury golf destinations, and overall excellent and customer experience and customer service. There have been some questions, rumors, stories about what Big Canoe Company has planned for the future of Big Canoe. We expected that. It shows how much this community loves Big Canoe. The reality is, there is yet to be concrete plans today for any significant development projects to share. We are exploring many potential opportunities to determine our path forward. Our goal is to improve the owner experience. As an example, my partners, Wayne and Curtis, sitting over here, took a huge risk a few years ago to create an assisted living facility along with an independent living facility. That facility should be open and operational in the next 60 days. As Scott mentioned before in his presentation, our average age in Big Canoe now is 67 years old. We like to do exit strategies with people when they leave Big Canoe, and we have found that when the older clientele are leaving Big Canoe, they leave to go age in place. We think we have created an asset and an amenity that can help solve that problem for people to age in place in Big Canoe. We look forward to creating new projects similar to that to improve the owner experience. With that said, we'd like to hear from you as a community. That means those who have been here for decades, a few years, or even considering moving to Big Canoe in the future. We want to hear from you. It would not be smart for us to not listen to the community, because if you don't support what we do, we don't succeed. We intend to create several paths to get your feedback. We create to have ongoing open communications with the POA. We will have surveys emailed out to the community for your feedback, and we will be creating focus groups that we hope that you participate in to help give us ideas and to help give us direction in the future of Big Canoe. We will also be scheduling time with the board for appropriate updates and plans as they become more solidified. Lastly, I'd like to reach out and say thank you to Terry Stewart, the board president, for his role in the Big Canoe board. Terry has made it a priority to improve relationships and to move forward with Big Canoe Company in a collaboration effort to improve the lifestyle and your experience here in Big Canoe. The future is bright, and we are excited to be a part of this asset. Thank you.
So quickly, we talked about the dam a little bit. It's a really important asset in Big Canoe. And just so you understand the way Georgia State Dams works, you have an engineer of record. The engineer of record for us is Geosyntec. Geosyntec is one of the top civil engineering and dam consulting companies in probably the world. And Wes McDonald comes to visit us twice a year and give you an update. Wes is from the Chattanooga, as my wife would say, the Chattanooga office. And Wes will fill us in. So wherever you are, there, come on up.
Perfect. I'm going to practice real quick. Making sure. You got me? Can you hear? Okay. Perfect. Thanks. Well, thank you, Scott. As he said, I'm Wes McDonald. I'm a principal engineer with Geosyntec, and I can't say it that way, but Chattanooga. We're a part of a bigger office that's right down the road in Kennesaw. And I've been working on different parts of Pettit Dam since about 2013 when I first joined the company. And so I just want to talk through, some of you may have seen me before. I'm going to assume there's new people here and talk through some of the basics. The folks who have seen me before and heard this before, the test will be in December, I guess. So we'll make sure you know the details here. So real quick, I'll just go through these high level and I'll talk to each one a little more detailed. But from what we've done since just December, there's been a lot happening. And these are just small bullets, but there's been a lot that goes to each bullet. And so Scott's hit on a few of these already, but we've received the updated permit to construct and operate the dam. Got the stability analysis revised and improved. Had the approval of the interceptor drains and the permit design. The design is submitted the low-level outlet repair. Completed a biannual engineering inspection and also a quarterly inspection. And we've just started the design of spillway upgrades. And so what we have coming up, in addition to all these, is the completion of those spillway upgrades, 2 construction projects, one related to the interceptor drain replacements, and the other related to the low-level outlet improvements. So with that said, I do want to just kind of echo what Scott said earlier, that it's been a long time coming, but obtaining that Georgia Safe Dams program approval of the stability analysis was key. We had heard, it's just nice to get that in writing, right? And get it finalized and approved. But it's just showing that the dam meets the state requirements for static stability and also seismic stability that are the requirements in the rules and regulations for the state of Georgia. And so what we did, there was a lot of back and forth there with comments between Safe Dams, also comments from a third-party engineering, another consultant that also reviewed the package, which ended up being great. So we can say somebody else has looked at that as well. And just brought it all together in one document. So you have it. The previous, there were parts of it all over the place. So if you ever need it in the future, it's in one spot. If Safe Dams ever has questions, we have it in one spot there. And it really, the peer review just added to it, I think, and made it more complete, including the static and the seismic stability. So with that, we worked those calculations into a permit application that was really focused on replacing the interceptor drains. And what those interceptor drains are, Scott, we've heard it throughout the meeting today about the infrastructure, right? Most of this dam and its features were built about 50 years ago. The dam was built 72. Other things were added. These interceptor drains were 74, 76, somewhere around there. And so things are just at the end of their design life and ready to be replaced. So these are some features that were installed as a result of the some initial seepage that was observed on the dam. And that's totally normal for an embankment dam like this. The seepage is there. These are shallow superficial drains that are on one of the lower benches there. They intercept the water. They put it out on a concrete ditch there. And both the ditch and the pipes are ready to be replaced. And so that's what we packaged together with the stability analyses and this design for replacing these into one permit application. And so that permit gives us approval to install these drains in this replacement. But there's also some other key parts of it in there that we'll get to with the low-level outlet and the spillway that will be coming up. And it's all tied together into this one permit. And I guess where we're at right now, we have received the final approval. We just got them this week. The drawings came in with the Safe Dams approval on those drawings. So that gives us approval to construct them. And we're in the RFP process right now. We've received bids, I think, this week as well. And that will be selecting a contractor and moving forward with that. And the construction should be done this year. Another item is the low-level outlet, which I mentioned. And this will be on the test. The low-level outlet is a dam safety feature that most dams have in some form. It's to lower the reservoir if there's ever a dam safety emergency, and that gives you the ability to take the lake down to whatever level you need. And that is a feature that was originally designed and constructed at the beginning of the dam's installation and hasn't really been touched since. We had started a program to test it and see where it is in terms of its capacity. Probably the original intent of the design was to just use this thing once. Since then, there's new regulations, and dam safety wants this feature to be tested annually. So we conducted a test of it by installing a plug in that drain pipe that is at the low-level outlet gate. And we did it with the diving team. And as we were able to open the gate, and as we opened it, the dive team observed some damages to the stem guides, which are structural supports that hold the stem in place. And so we've since closed that gate. The gate's presently closed. The plug's in place, and we are going through this process to get Safe Dams approval on the design to replace and update those stem guides. So the design's been submitted. We have actually received the Safe Dams comments in June, and this month we'll be finalizing those drawings and addressing their comments and sending it back. Similar to the drains project, it would be a different type of contractor here because of the work, but we've been going through the RFP process as well, and we'll have that going as soon as the design is approved to select a contractor to perform that work. I mentioned also the biennial engineering inspection. I should have started off with this. For those of you not familiar, Lake Pettit Dam is a Category 1 dam in the state of Georgia, which means if it were to fail, there's possible life loss downstream. And that's, as a result of being a Category 1 dam, that's really what Safe Dams programs is set up to regulate in the state, to manage that safety of residents. So, as part of being a Category 1, there's several requirements. One of them is a biennial engineer inspection. So a member of our team, a licensed engineer in the state of Georgia, has performed that inspection. We've submitted that to the state. And we've also been asked by the POA to perform the other requirement, which is quarterly inspections of the dam. And those are only required to be done by the owner. So anyone at the POA could do it. Scott could do it if he really wanted to. But they've asked us to do it. And we're out there quarterly to perform those quarterly inspections. And so we're routinely looking at this dam, documenting it, and noting anything that needs to be done. Generally maintenance items. And so we're coordinating with the POA, and here's the list of items, and making sure things get done to continue the maintenance of the dam. So we got 2 of those done for this year. 2 more will be upcoming. The other item that has been started and will be a lot of the work moving forward, besides the construction, is the spillway design. And so we've kicked that off. We've done our site visits and our meetings with to start laying out the concept of it, and done the initial hydraulic calculations. But just for those unfamiliar, that's the feature that you see, the cascading waterfalls that you drive by when you're on Wolf Scratch Drive. That feature is not technically on the dam, it's on the abutment, but it's a key feature in terms of the operation of the dam. And it's where the water flows as it comes into the lake, and that's where the waters pass through the dam. As the spillway stands right now, it's capable of passing the design storm that's required for the Safe Dams program. And the key there is that the dam would not overtop if there was one of these large, very, very, very large storms. And I should just clarify, just for everybody to know, like, it's not a 100-year storm, it's not a 1,000-year storm, it's a storm that would happen one time ever, theoretically. And so it's, statistically speaking, you can't give it a return period. So that's what's required for a Category 1 in the state of Georgia. So it's a lot of flow, and what we want to make sure is, again, another 50-year-old plus feature, that this is ready for the next 50 years and able to handle the flows, also incorporate new design features that are standard in the industry now. So it's able to be maintained and continued use. So I mentioned several of these as we went through, but what's coming up is really the interceptor drain construction, which, if you're not familiar with it, that would likely be towards the bottom where Wolf Scratch Drive is. So it's one of the first benches there. So you may see some work happening there. We'll continue the quarterly inspections in Q3 and Q4. The restoration for the full operation of the low-level outlet will mainly be taking place on top of the dam and underwater. So you may not see too much there because most of that work is underwater, but there may be some activity there once it gets going. And also, as we progress the design of the spillway, the goal is to submit that design to Safe Dams in December, and then progress through that. So high level, we don't know how long the review process and the comments will take, but hopefully we'll be able to start that sometime in spring to mid next year. Expect that to take maybe a year or so. Don't quote me on that. It'll take a lot of work because we're just not there on the design yet to say. And then the contractors will have to get involved, but just rough ideas for everybody to understand in the community. So, I think I enjoy coming up here every time. I really look forward to it. And every time I attend one of these meetings, I learn something new. So just this strategic plan is, I've heard about it. I see a lot of the other parts of it. I'm only working on one small part, but I think it's just great to see, if you don't put these things in writing, you never get anything done. And several of these things that we've accomplished and that will be accomplished here soon are things that we listed on that long-term plan when we started it, probably about the same time as everything else you've been discussing today. So I want to thank you all for your time, and I'll hang around if there's questions later.
Thank you, Wes. Okay. All right. The next part of our agenda is Q&A. One of the things you saw on one of the board goals side, and you've noticed the last couple of board meetings, if we hear 2 or 3 questions throughout the month, then We'll compile those questions, and we will proactively tell you what some questions are, and we'll proactively answer the question. So we've got, I think, 6 or 7 questions that we have taken the initiatives to pre-answer, if you will. The first one, since we just talked about the dam, how are we going to pay for the dam? I'm going to turn it over to Sandy. Okay?
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Wes. Actually, in addition to how we're going to pay for it, I want to share with you, you're probably thinking, so with all that talk and all that dialogue, what is the current number that we're using for a dam estimate? In other words, Scott has spent a lot of time talking with Wes. They talk every week. We took Wes's input to try to determine and update our cost estimates. So based on information we have as of today, with Scott and his team's input, the dam work could cost up to $9 million over the next several years. So that's a big number. It's a very critical number. It's an important number. The dam is a required expenditure, right? It's not a nice to have. So saying that, we have management, Scott and his team, Scott Jane, senior team, have gone back and looked at our cash flow projection model. This is a tool the community management, the finance committee, the board have used the last several years. And basically, we look and analyze and provide estimates of our sources of funds, i.e. our cash inflows. And the model also looks at uses of cash, our cash outflows. So the full $9 million potentially needed for dam repairs is currently earmarked for and set aside in our cash flow model. So let me say that again. Both the Finance and Audit Committee and the board have studied in detail this cash flow projection model, and the $9 million dam expenditure has been sufficiently built into and included in this cash model. And let me add one more important piece to that. Our cash flow model has a $4 million cushion year over year over year. Recall a minute ago, you saw our almost $3 million, $2.98 million, our emergency fund, we call it, the capital reserve fund. So that money is sitting in our model, not touched for any expenditures. In addition, we also have at least $1 million annually of operating cash set aside, included in that model. So once again, our model covers our potential $9 million cost estimate on the dam and also includes a $4 million cushion. And the next question is Terry.
Thank you. The next question is, why is there not a new vote to proceed with the clubhouse renovation due to the total project cost being higher than originally estimated? I want to remind everyone, if you had a chance to view the June 27th meeting, there are 3 components to the total cost of the clubhouse project. 1, the actual renovation and work on the building. I'm rounding numbers for time. $6.3 million. That is a guaranteed maximum price from McAllen Construction. The second bucket of money is other costs. What's other costs? State-of-the-art audiovisual equipment, permitting. We're going to need a temporary pro shop. We're going to have storage and so forth. That other cost number is $801,000. We have also built in $503,000 of contingency dollars. You add 6.3, 801, 503, you come to the total project cost of $7,686,084. Last year, property owners were asked to approve the funding of 2 projects. Both projects exceeded $1 million. Due to time, I won't go into all the detail of Policy and Procedure 152, but it basically says if the board wants to spend over $1 million based on 2010 with CPI increases throughout, we need to seek approval if it's for expansion or new construction. So that's exactly what we did. Since both projects were both estimated to exceed $1 million, the board asked for approval to potentially fund these projects in excess of $1 million. Once the projects were voted on by the community, the final decision as to whether or not to move forward with either of these projects lies with the board. And that decision could not be made until all due diligence was completed and until all bids were received. The vote said we approve the funding, keep going. Even though the total project cost is higher than the initial preliminary estimate of $6,350,000, we had to consider why and what was the reasons for that increase. I went into great detail on the 27th, but there are 4 main areas. Number 1, the scope changed tremendously. Instead of we were going to touch 13,000 square feet of the main floor, we're now touching 18,000 because it's the right thing to do. We want all the flooring and everything throughout the facility to look good. Secondly, a year ago, we only had 30% design schematics. The guaranteed maximum price proposals from the contractors was based on 100% completed schematics. Third, there has been commercial construction inflation since then. In addition, the board worked with KDC to mitigate some of these increases by doing some value engineering. You add all that together, that's what led us to $7.6 million. So unlike the postal facility, which I'll answer that question in a minute, which was way over on a percentage basis, the board felt the clubhouse was within reason given the changes that have occurred over the last 13 months. The vote to proceed passed by almost 1,000 votes. Almost 1,000 votes, 931 if you want to be exact. So we feel we are executing the will of the majority of property owners. Therefore, the board has the authority to move forward with the project, and we are moving forward with the project. We have already started doing things, and I cannot tell you how excited I am and we are about what that clubhouse is going to look like in 9, 10 months, whatever. Certainly next summer. So that's why there was not a need or a requirement to come back, okay, yeah, let's vote again, kind of thing. Okay? That answers, hopefully, that question. You might have another question that says, why did the board decide not to move forward with the postal facility project, even though the property, you voted to approve funding for this? Well, that sounds really nice. For the reasons mentioned on the clubhouse, the vote of the property owners was to allow the board to spend in excess of $1 million. It was not a vote to require the board to spend the amount of money. In the case of the post office, we determined that it is in the best interest of the community not to proceed with the postal facility because the total project cost came in between 4.1 and 5.1 million, depending on which contractor, which was like a 55 to 85% increase over the original estimate of $2.7 million. And one of the reasons is all the site work and everything. Once due diligence was completed and the final bids came in, and given the excessive additional expense that would be required over the preliminary estimate of $2.7 million, is what led the board to make the decision not to move forward with a brand new combined postal facility at the North Gate. So you might say, postal was over, average it, 65%. Clubhouse was about 19 or 20%. Had the clubhouse come in 55 to 85% over the original estimate, we'd be having a whole lot of different conversations, okay? So that's why there's not a revote, and that's why the decision was made not to build a brand new postal facility. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark. You may have another question.
Now I'm going to get up here and talk for about 15 minutes now. Actually, so the next question here is, you're not moving forward the postal facility. Does that mean that it's just, are there any future plans? So just because the postal facility project was deferred for now, doesn't mean that the board doesn't acknowledge the deficiencies that the current postal facility has. Everything we wrote before and said, we realize that we have some problems with the postal facility. And we also acknowledge the importance of the postal facility to all of the property owners of Big Canoe. It just didn't fit into the puzzle, as you've heard Terry speak of, about how all this worked. It didn't fit into the puzzle of the Renew Big Canoe set of initiatives this time around. But that doesn't mean that we are done thinking about a solution. So we're going to go back, continue trying to solve this issue. We realize that Big Canoe will continue to grow and that e-commerce is certainly not going anywhere, and it's going to become super critical that we have the right facility. We just got to figure out how to get there. Part of that next phase, Terry touched upon this, we're going to be doing some more data acquisition, polling to try and find out kind of where people are now on this, and we're going to try and contextualize some of these questions about some of these facilities. So we haven't forgotten about it. Post office is still important, and back to work. You're getting to hear from everybody today, almost.
All right, why can't we make money at the clubhouse? Just a bigger question is, how come we've never made money at the clubhouse? The developer did all the costs and spending for 30 years. They didn't make any money. We've done it for 20, and we've never made any money either. What is the board thinking when they decide on a budget that says we're going to contribute some money to the operation of that clubhouse? Well, we go back, and I've had this strategic plan in my pocket for our last 138 meetings, I think. And number one for me is the property owner experience. And that's been from the very get-go. The developer didn't build Sconti Clubhouse to make money. Didn't build a golf course to make money. Didn't build tennis courts to make money. It's all about the experience of being here in Big Canoe. So how do we look at this each year and set a budget? We would love to make money. We would love to break even. And throughout the years, we've tried various ways bringing in outside management. We had Bobby Jones, Links, here in 2020. And in 2021, we lost the least amount of money we ever did. And the property owner said, "We hate this. The clubhouse is never open. It's not available to us. So we're not looking to run a profit center at the clubhouse. This is a key amenity, a key way for you to enjoy Big Canoe, key way to maintain our values here. And it also touches on a couple of other of our strategic objectives, which is maintaining our assets and attracting employees. So we're going to work every year to maintain that balance. Maybe we'll have weddings once we finish the clubhouse renovation, and those numbers will come back closer to break even. So why can't we make money at the clubhouse? Because we want to deliver a great experience.
So I'm gonna. The next question coming out of Tim's thing is, where are we gonna eat? So we're closing a clubhouse, but we're not crazy. So we're going to open up, just like they did in 2006-ish, we're going to open up a really nice, cool restaurant across the street. So the second floor of the beach club will become our new dining area. The outside wraparound porch of the beach club with the beautiful look over the lake will become our new veranda. And actually, guys, if you actually take the capacity of the inside plus that wraparound porch, it's 75% of the capacity that we have at our current clubhouse in the main dining room and the veranda. And I think personally, so we've been talking to our Ridge Runners decor team that does all the beautiful things at the clubhouse. We think it's going to be really a neat vibe, really interesting, really fun. Hector's excited. He's building all kinds of ideas about what he's going to do with the menu and things like that. We're going to move the clubhouse furniture over. We're going to move the linen over. We're going to do a little redecorating. We're going to set up a bar. I think it's not quite camping, but I think it's going to be fun and different, and you're going to be close to the lake, and we're going to be kind of intimate, and we got a great fireplace in there. So I'm looking forward to it, and we're not going to be turning people away or anything because, you know, the plan was to get through the heavy summer, and then as we go into the winter, our volume goes down, and that facility has more than enough room for the number of covers that we normally do. So then the key question is, what's happening to our staff? I talked at the beginning, right? My very first thing was all about employees. So I met with the entire clubhouse staff yesterday. It's the second time I've done it, but it's the first time since we actually announced, you know, we are closing on August 24th, and we will be reopening about 10 months later when the construction is done. They're scared. There's no question. They're nervous, right? And it's funny, like around the room, you kind of see the vibe changing a little bit. We talk about that, and they're like, that could be fun. That could be really neat. All my normal customers and stuff are going to see me there. Melanie's like, no, this is going to be fine. I know the people. They're going to come. Other people are like, I'm not so sure. Scott, I got bills to pay. Will I get my same tips and stuff? And we're looking at options, right? We're looking at financial options for them. But quite frankly, most of it depends on us. If we keep coming, if we keep supporting our employees, if we keep showing up over there, they're going to make the same tips. They're going to see the same volume pretty much that they would normally see in November through early spring. They're not going to suffer. If we say, no, not going to happen, I'm going to wait for that new clubhouse, I'm going to go somewhere else, you shot our employees in the foot. And then it's going to be really hard for us to say, how can we support everybody and make sure everybody's there when we open the new clubhouse? They want to be there when we open the new clubhouse. They're not stupid. They're kind of like, hey, you build a new ballpark, everybody goes to see the Orioles when you open Camden Yards. We build a new clubhouse, we're all going to be hanging out in the new clubhouse because it's going to be really cool. We just got to make sure we build a bridge to keep our employees well fed and well supplied, and then they will be there for us when we get back. So the board and I are looking at some other options, but quite frankly, most of it really depends on us. So hopefully we'll support Hector and the back of the house staff and all the front of the house staff that you all know and love, and I'll see you over there. So that's it.
Thank you, Scott, Tim, Mark, Sandy, and all. Being on the board, it's a team effort. Everybody participates. So we wanted y'all to hear from everyone, most everyone. That concludes our formal presentation to you. We've already gone over time limit, but you know what? We also want to open it up if you have any questions or comments regarding what you've heard today or something we didn't answer. We have two mic guys, and Mark and Craig, and they'll come to you. If you'll just raise your hand, they'll make their way, and then we will do our best to answer the question. If we don't know the answer, we'll tell you we don't know the answer. So anybody have a question or comment? There's one. do we do this again? I come to y'all and y'all ask it. Okay, we had a hand right over here. Margo.
Margo Malone, 2582. And my question is for Mike Z. Mike, as timeshare owners forever, if you mentioned Wyndham, and that raised the question in my mind, what is going to be Wyndham's role here? Is there going to be a Wyndham facility built, something on the order of a hotel or condos, and also are there plans for Wyndham to open up timeshare throughout the community with current rental properties? So I'm just trying to get clarification. What does Wyndham mean to us?
Thank you for the question, Margo. I know I was speaking quickly in my presentation, but Big Canoe Company currently has no relationship with Wyndham whatsoever. And I know it was kind of short and sweet, but we don't have a relationship with them. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question or comment? Oh, we got one right here.
Dan Chelko, 402. I have not received a ballot or a survey in the past year. Can that be corrected?
It wasn't on purpose. Yes, it can be corrected. Right there.
All right.
Absolutely.
The second
Probably something got checked in your Club Essentials profile that said you didn't want to get something, and that took those out also.
Okay.
But we'll fix it. Easy.
My second point is the water situation with UIG. Can we have a water cooperative? Have you thought about governing our water system as a cooperative? Just like Emacloa EMC, Ace Hardware is a cooperative, Land O'Lakes Butter down there, IGA was a cooperative. It's with Lowe's, they're for profit, so if you see your prices rise, that's why. So have you thought of a cooperative?
That's not our choice. It's not our choice.
Why?
UIG owns the water company, and they would have to agree to do something like that, which I'll be candid with you, I don't see that happening. I really don't.
Buy UIG out.
I know what UIG paid for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I know pretty much what they would want for it now, and it's a really big number because they've invested $9 million. So be candid with you, I don't see that happening. The potential answer is continuing the negotiations with UIG and influence how future rates are calculated. But we live in a mountain community, and water is going to cost more to get it up and down these mountains. That's the base fact. The actual cost of the water itself is pretty reasonable. It's just the infrastructure that it takes and the continued investment they're going to have to make so that we don't have. So they've taken the water loss from 73% down to 36%, which is a tremendous improvement, but they're not done yet. But it'll never get to 0% because we're in a mountain community and so forth. So they've made a lot of improvements. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I know. Okay? Anybody else? Oh, there's one back there.
My name is Terrell Leonard, lot 2051. Using the assumption we're going ahead with the clubhouse, what is the plan to repay the loan?
What was the question?
Question is, since we're doing this clubhouse thing, how are we going to repay that loan?
You want to?
So when we took out the Wells Fargo line of credit, basically. It was a variable draw period. We could take, as much as we needed for a certain period, right? And then it locks next summer at 3.46%, which is unheard of, unbelievable. Very smart finance committee made that decision. At that point, then, we have a 15-year repayment period on the amount that we've drawn that then is locked at 3.46. So in the cash flow model that Sandy talked about, we have assumed that we're drawing the entire $15 million line of credit, and then at 3.46%, we know what the principal and interest of that is over the 15-year payback period, and that's built into our cash flow that Sandy was talking about. So there is no need for some kind of special assessment or something to repay back the loan. It's all been figured into our 15-year cash flow.
Great. Any other questions? We'll come back to you for question 2. We want to go to, there's one in the back, Neil.
That lady right there's got her hand up while I make my way back to Neil. Hey, Craig, you grab this lady right here. Why don't you get this lady right here while I make my way back to Neil? I'm kind of bossy that way. I'm the senior mic guy.
This is a quick question. Oh, sorry.
I think it's on.
Michelle Hansen, line 8151.
No.
Okay. Michelle Hansen, lot number 815. Question. Since we're not doing the post office right away, I'm just wondering, in the list of priorities, when does the wellness center factor in?
When does wellness center?
The wellness center, the fitness center, when does that factor in for renewing big?
Yeah, it gets back to, I talked about short and long-term planning. It's going to be a part of that process. We realize that there needs to be some things done to the wellness center, but when the property owners, based on the voice of the community, the wellness center did not make the top 3. The top 3 was our trash facility, the postal facility, and the clubhouse, and wellness center was down. Now, if we do a voice of the community survey today, I expect that will be a little bit higher, but we'll put it into the list of priorities because we realize some money needs to be spent on it. We just have to factor everything in. Okay?
That's why I was wondering, if we're not doing the post office, does that raise the chances?
We've got a lot of priorities that we're going to have to deal with. So if you're looking at it, either post office or wellness center, not doing post office, well, we're going to have to spend some money on current post office. So we'll factor that all into our planning. But it's not being ignored, I can assure you that.
Neil Cornelson, lot 2992. So the first question is really the vote from last year for the post office. When does that expenditure vote expire? Or does it go on until eternity?
That first question?
That's first question.
The decision has been made. We are not building. So that vote does not go on to eternity.
So
that decision has been made.
The vote will be required for anything we do that's over the CPI, the 1 million, whatever. Okay. So you guys have a great task force for the clubhouse, which is really what I want to ask. Is you asked for volunteers, you asked for a bunch of skill sets, but you didn't talk about the deliverable that you want this task force to go. Such as, what is the NPS score that we want the clubhouse to score next June when it opens, and what are the number of meals served, all those type of things. How do we run our finances so we don't have a $200,000 inventory loss, those types of things. What are the deliverables that we expect from this task force, and how is that going to impact the quality of life and a homeowner experience?
Okay, thank you. You want to answer that?
So Neil, this is a remodeling task force. The things that you're talking about are a whole different subject that we could spend an awful lot of time talking about today. But this team is not chartered with that. This team is chartered with getting us a clubhouse built and assisting Sam to get it delivered on time to meet the specifications that the contractor approved and get us in there as quickly as possible. It's all in the spec already.
So that's a change order. So we have change orders by that task force, as you said, in that presentation. So a change order could be the flooring.
Remember, there is 138 pages of drawings, and as Terry showed last month, specifications this big. That's what we have contracted with McAllen to deliver, and that's what gets to a guaranteed maximum price of $6.3 million from.
So you don't need change orders then.
Hopefully there wouldn't be any change orders, right? Change orders are there if things run into and happen, then they are brought to the team. The team considers it. They make a recommendation. It will be brought to the board and to me, and we will decide, just like we do on the golf course or any other project, how that fits in with, do we have to trade something off? Hey, we wanted to spend a little more there, but we're not going to do there. We do that every day with every project we manage.
So if we don't have a task force on the hospitality side and how it performs, why don't we have a task force to help guide the board and you, Scott? Because if I looked at your LinkedIn's, your resumes for running, none of us have hospitality experience. So why don't we have a task force that works on that scenario to provide what are the KPIs, the financial controls that we get into the operation of it?
Well, we have clearly when we set our budget, right, which I report on every single month, we have all the KPIs on the financial performance of the clubhouse and where it needs to be, and we report any variances. What you're talking about is a hospitality task force, which is different. There was one at one point in Big Canoe a long time ago. I'm open to thinking about it. We can talk it over with the board, but right now there's no plan to actually bring that back.
We are for potential hospitality experience to join the team. Put your application in and
my name's Robert Bachman, 3241. We've been talking a little bit about some of the short-term tactical issues almost on some of these projects. To me, my greatest concern, and the concern of many of us, is really the strategic challenges that we face. And that being the developer's plans on how he will help the development of Big Canoe. We appreciate the asset that you mentioned in helping our community, but I think it would be wonderful to see the developer invest in further development of our amenities within our community. The rumors are pretty rampant, and when we get fairly high-level, incomplete, if not superficial comments, it only causes us greater concern. So my greatest concern is, are we going to change the integrity of our community? Or how much of a resort will be coming forward? A lot of questions, no answers. So I'm sure, among others, are looking forward to further substantial facts that will come from the developer and how we're going to work our community in the future.
Well said. Mike, you want to respond to that or anything?
I'm not sure if there was a question in there or if that was a statement, but
Well, he asked if y'all would put money in the amenities. I thought I'd ask that.
Thank you for reminding us of that. That's very admirable. As we move forward, we do plan on creating new amenities, but as far as adding capital into existing amenities, that's a conversation that would need to be had between us and the board, and to see how that looks.
What was it?
Well, that assume you have a business plan that indicates when you're going to be making those decisions. So that we as residents can expect.
Certainly, we don't have a business plan that we're able to disclose to the community at this point in time. That's an internal plan. But as we move forward with the POA, we're always open to those conversations without a question.
Okay, here we go, right here.
Thomas Boynton, 1074. With regard to UIG and the SLOA and understanding that we have either the number one or number two highest water rates in the state on private water systems. And I understand you guys are negotiating with UIG right now, and it's been a difficult process. How are you planning to control future water rates and how much increases we experience each year going forward? Because we're already very high.
These SLOA that was approved and in the contract in 2018, UIG, for them to make the millions of dollars of investment that they did to buy the water company and the millions of dollars that they were going to put in to get the water company service to somewhat an acceptable level, in that contract, they are guaranteed a 12% EBIT. You know that, okay? That's not going to change, okay? But what could change is how that EBIT, how it is calculated and what goes into the formula. And that's what we're spending so much time on now. So that probably doesn't answer your question, but there's legislation going on now that's where you're going, isn't it? There's legislation going on right now that right now Georgia is a non-regulated state for water companies. Non-regulated. It's one of the few in the country. But there's an initiative underway by various people at Lake Oconee and others, because they think their water rate's high, to put forth legislation that Georgia would become a regulated state. And that is actually part of our negotiations. We don't want whatever's decided now to negatively impact us should that become a possibility. That's probably all I can say at this point, but I think you know where I'm going. So, okay? Sure. Anybody up back there for question number 2?
Question number 2. And we're getting pretty close on time here. We got about 2 minutes before we got to get out of here, guys.
Second pass, because I obviously didn't ask the question properly. My name is Terrell Leonard, lot 2051. The question was, how are we going to pay off the loan for the clubhouse? And yes, I'm aware of the 3.5%, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, down to the basics, what can I expect as my personal increase in POA fees to pay for the amortization of the loan?
That's a question you can't answer.
Okay. There are no plans for a special assessment to pay for the clubhouse. Period. Okay? The loan that was taken out 10 years ago when the POA acquired a lot of the assets, chimneys and land and so forth, round numbers was about $10 million. There are some wise people that have been paying principal and interest on that. That $10 million by May of next year will be down to about $1.5 million, round numbers somewhere along there. Yeah, and that's when the any monies we spend on the clubhouse or any other funds that we spend out of the credit facility, that will be factored in. I can't tell you today, but there's no plans to say, okay, your dues is going to increase. I'm making something up, okay? X%. And because of the clubhouse, it's going to be X plus. There are no plans for that. In our cash flow model, what is being paid on a monthly basis, it will go up a little bit. On the total debt, it will be spread out over 15 years. And that's how we're going to pay for it out of our operating cash, not ask you to ante up some more money. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the fact. Scott, did I misrepresent anything there? Sandy, did I misrepresent anything? Okay. Okay.
Bill Shaw, 404. Mr. McLeod spent 8 months, 2 and 3 meetings a month, developing a strategic plan. That plan and the technique that was provided was a SMART method, which has been around for a whole bunch of years.
You're good.
My question is, in the SMART plan, the S stands for
Specific. The M is measurable.
stands for measurable. In the plans that I've been hearing for months, I hear no specifics, I hear no measurement. That's got to change. And I think when we say things like improve communications, that's not a goal. That's not a specific. And it can't be measured. And I wonder, or will suggest, that the board consider being a little bit more specific with their goals, present them more often. We get operational goals. About the same time, we should have our executive goals. How are we doing? How do you measure it? And what are the successes or drawbacks to what you're trying to do? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll touch on a couple of points to that. The SMART methodology, which is what the strat plan tests utilize, that's the exact same methodology that this board went through to establish the 4 goals. I mentioned we were short on time, so I didn't go into a lot of detail, but that is every single goal that you saw up here has an owner. I own some, Mark owns some, and so forth, and it has due dates. We measure things. One example of that is the number of emails and the number of clicks and opens. That's one of the ways that we measure. So we have measurement. We do.
I might just add on. I don't think the 4 or 5 goals are specific. They're really not specific. And I don't know how you measure them. Okay, how many people open something? How many people come to meetings? That's an indication of how they're getting. What's the turnover rates? They should be discussed. What is the goal set forth by the board? And I also mean the developer too. Let us know what your goals are specifically and how you're going to measure those goals.
Okay. As you know, Bill, this is one of the first boards that's had, not the only board, okay, I'm not implying that, any board members in here, but we set goals. There was not high-level board goals set prior to this year. We wanted to put ourselves out there and set goals. There's spreadsheets and detail behind every one of these. So I don't know what to tell you. It's probably not meeting your expectations, but there's detail and information behind one of these, and we're committed to these 4 this year. We will go through the same process when the new board, 2 rotate off and 2 rotate on, will go through the same process to set goals for next year. That doesn't mean that the goals we have this year go away. Okay, on December the 5th, let's just file those away and start new. And there's a lot of individual goals that we just don't have time to cover. It doesn't meet your satisfaction, but I'm telling you what I know. Okay? Next. Okay?
I remember at the beginning of the clubhouse project, there was talk about.
Okay, need a mic? Yep, sorry.
So there was, what are we going to do about more parking at the clubhouse when this was first discussed?
Mm-hmm.
And I may have overlooked it, but I don't see anything about parking in our current plan, do I?
Yeah.
I do?
You do not.
Oh, okay. So what I recall is that the parking was going to extend to, I think it was Choctaw, and then there would need to be some changes to that golf course. This is sketchy, I know. It's like I'm remembering. And I also remember something about the pro shop being renovated along with the locker rooms downstairs was kind of mentioned. I'm wondering, are these things that we're looking at now and we're going to attach a budget to?
There are at least 2 phases of parking that we have laid out. So one is assuming that when we finish the clubhouse, we have some strategic questions to answer, which will come up in the budget cycle actually for next year. One of them, Tim mentioned, we came within $50,000 of breaking even at the clubhouse in 2021. The way we did that is we filled it with outside weddings. All of the weddings from 2020 and 2021 all happened in 2021. 50 grand, not bad. We need to decide as a team, given our strategic plan, does it make sense to welcome the world into our clubhouse? And if we did, exactly what you just said means, oh my gosh, we're going to, part of the cost of doing that would be we have to execute phase 1 of the parking renovation, maybe even eventually phase 2 of the parking renovation, which does impact the design of Choctaw. The good news is, as we've done Choctaw, we knew that parking design, it was already done. So Bergen has shaped Choctaw 1 accordingly. So everything we're doing on Choctaw does not have to be redone if we wanted to do that. But everything flows from a strategy, is kind of what Bill was just saying. Everything, you start with, where do we want to be as a community? What do we want to do with the clubhouse? What loss is acceptable in the clubhouse? There is a price for exclusivity. There is, if we don't want to have a whole bunch of folks coming in, then we're going to pay a little bit more for that exclusivity in our assessments. And then what do you have to do in staffing? What do you have to do in parking? What do you have to do in all these things? All of that gets considered when we make a strategic decision. As far as downstairs, there was a very rough plan on, in the future, someday, somewhere, we have too much locker room space. We probably have too much pro shop space for the e-commerce world that we live in now, where you don't need as much displayed. So in the master long-range plan that Terry keeps mentioning, we will at some point need to decide what are we going to do with the bottom of the clubhouse. We need more meeting space. I mean, I get calls every day. I need more card space. The rooms downstairs at the clubhouse are always full, all that kind of stuff. So lots of needs in this community that we have to go back and reprioritize and then look at our long-term funding plan. That's what the finance committee does.
We'll take a couple of more questions because I'm getting all kind of signals.
Yeah, we're
from
getting all
Doug
kind of
and
signals. One thing I'm going to mention, data acquisition is going to be a big part of this. So we've gotten to this point. Now we're going to be doing more polling to find out what makes sense on some of these strategic positions. So just hang in there, guys. We can't, stuff like this doesn't happen instantly. All right, we got time for one more question.
You knew it'd be me, Scott. Jack Foster, lot 7225. Totally unrelated, I'd like to thank the County Commission Chairman of Pickens County for paving Cove Road. Thank you. Scott raised an interesting question. What level of losses is acceptable for the clubhouse?
Budget process. Budget process. Yeah.
What?
I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah. Less than what it is now. Okay? And we'll go into the budget process and we'll factor in what is an acceptable deficit next year without hindering the property owner experience when the property comes back up. So I don't have an answer for you today other than less than what it is now.
I think Tim kind of touched on that earlier.
You can hear me? I think they're trying to cut me off. Tim kind of touched on that earlier in that our clubhouse, I think a lot of times there's some misinformation out there, or they compare our clubhouse to a restaurant. Like, why does our restaurant lose $700,000? So, again, it's an amenity. Our restaurant does pretty good against other restaurants. It's an amenity. And so there is a price to pay to have that amenity. And so, we're working on it all the time. We'd like to have it less, but we've talked about a lot of the reasons we could or couldn't do that. So we're working on it.
And I would like to proactively thank Dawson County for putting Burkett Road and Fawcett Lake Road at the top of the priority for paving. So thank you very much. Because those of us in Dawson County voted for SPLOST. Yeah. Okay. Thank y'all very much for coming.